we live in Silicon Valley, California. I don't have to tell you that. You know where you live. I'm just clarifying for the folks at home. We are a global hub for innovative technology, invention, social media, and home to those who have and currently are thinking outside of the box. We are a breeding ground for genius, so it's no wonder that the students who are raised here value intelligence above all else. And we go to one of the best high schools in this state. SAT and ACT scores, 4.0s, and AP classes are the main focus of almost every student within these walls. And there's nothing wrong with that. But above average intelligence is our baseline, and you've got to rise above average intelligence in order to stand out. But what about the student who doesn't get the A, who doesn't take the APs, who doesn't get a 4.0, who may get a 950 on the SAT? What about them? What do they even look like? Hi, nice to meet you. That's me. So unfortunately, there is no way to visually tell which students are higher performing, and I do not glow blue each time I receive a C. But alas, it is true. For instance, last year I barely passed Algebra 1 in my night classes with a C. Actually, I was glad to have passed. So what do? If we're going off the ideas that my peers hold, that my worth and intelligence is based on my grades, and I'm not getting good grades, then I'm practically a piece of bread. So measuring intelligence by numbers and letters and scores and grades simply cannot be correct, right? Because I'm functioning, I'm talking, I can walk across this stage, and I memorize this 18-minute speech. Yes, 18 minutes, buckle in. So that cannot be correct. However, there was a point in time where I completely believed I was the grade I received, that my worth and my grades were one and the same. But you don't start out like that. Things like that you have to be taught, so let me tell you how it was taught to me. Okay, let's back up to elementary school. Think Justice t-shirts, knee-high Converse, spiky earrings, and rolly backpacks. I was sitting across the dinner table from my mother and politely explained to her the path for the rest of my life. I had it perfectly planned out by the year. I told her I would go to middle school, get straight A's, go to high school, take all of the AP classes, and graduate as valedictorian, and then go to Yale or Harvard. You know, normal kid things. And at the time, even I could admit that wasn't an entirely realistic plan, so I made sure to keep UCLA and Columbia as my safety schools. I walked into first grade just absolutely oozing confidence and swagger, you can imagine. Unfortunately, my confidence was very short-lived. I think I lasted a little over 2 months before we ran into some serious problems. I couldn't learn math. I struggled with math so much that I couldn't read a clock until 5th grade, and I still do not know the majority of my times tables. If you were to ask me what 3 times 7 is, right here on this stage, the answer would just be a blank stare. I got nothing. So finally, after months of struggling in first grade, my parents decided to have me tested for learning disabilities. I hated the entire experience, but they came up with the results. VPD, visual processing disorder. And of course, until I did a quick Google search about 5 years later, I had no idea what that meant. Let's say you look at a math problem, your brain starts to make things quick. But with VPD, my short-term memory is impressively bad. I can learn a topic, perform it once or twice, and then it's basically gone from my brain, which is not exactly ideal as a student. But I was placed into the resource program at my elementary school, and I loved it. I graduated, made my way to Fisher Middle School, and had a pretty smooth transition. And on paper, all was practically golden. However, there was one little problem with my perfect transition into the world of principal scholar. I spent 3 periods each week in an area called the T-Wing. There were 5 classrooms, all of which were filled to the brim with kids with every learning disorder under the sun. ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, basically every acronym that includes an A and ends in IA, and I was one of them. It was absolute chaos. The classrooms were never quiet, and in fact, I don't think I ever saw them dip below painfully loud. The 6th graders flipped over desks, water bottles were thrown, boys played paper football across 3 desk surfaces, and at one point I had the pleasure of listening to the Wii theme for a week straight until my teacher tracked down the source. However, I did get to witness my first fist fight in Flex one day, so there are some serious upsides. But to be honest, it actually took me close to the entirety of my 6th grade year to get used to the insanity. But I adapted, and I slowly began to fall in love with the T-Wing. There was this odd, wistful beauty about the chaos I was learning to float through. The people I previously hated became my friends. The boys who called me Charlotte because I didn't, quote, look like an Emmy, became my favorite people to see. The rest of the T-Wing was a different world from the rest of my middle school, an alternate reality where the rules were different, and best of all, I was one of the only ones who knew about it. And I went into 8th grade, and everything was okay, except for 6th period math. It was a really small special ed class, 6 kids in total. It was me and 4 others. Hold on one second. That's fine, just a second. No, it doesn't matter, it's fine. It's fine. And in any other situation, I would have strongly disliked the boys I was in class with, thinking that they were slackers or below me, but they grew on me. And as much as I wanted to distance myself from the slackers, I couldn't help but join in on the shenanigans. Because for lack of a better term, our classroom absolutely sucked. And if humming Kahoot music under my breath along with them for an hour every day was the way to brighten the room, I was in. I hated math that year, but I loved those 3 boys. But in the subject matter itself, in math, I immediately began to slip. This year was supposed to be my foundation for algebra. But for the first time in my middle school career, for the first time in my life, I was failing. Why couldn't I learn? I remember looking from my desk to the desk, clock, back and forth for it felt like ages. I traced the numbers in front of me, reread the problem, rewrote it, asked for clarification, which only confused me more, and worked my butt off. I wanted to learn, but I couldn't. So, after one too many teary-eyed tests and escaped to the bathroom, I was done. I went to my teacher after school. I put my shoulders back, stood in front of his desk. "I'm sorry," were the first 2 words out of my mouth. I was willing to accept the reason I was struggling was 100% completely, without a doubt, my own fault. I told him, I know I haven't been doing really well, but I do really want an A, and I am willing to work for it. I remember he looked up at me and paused, and I expected him to offer some warm words of encouragement or some assistance. But instead, he looked me directly into my happy, forward-focused, hopeful 8th grader eyes and said, "If you got A's on tests, you wouldn't be in this class." Now that stung, like really bad. The words hit me across the face so hard I lost my breath. This class? Kids in this class are too dumb to get A's. Because of the acronym on our IEP reports, we're too dumb to get A's? I could actually feel his eyes boring into the side of my face. So I raised my head and stared back at him. And then I did something I'll regret for the rest of my life. I said absolutely nothing. I didn't speak up. I always thought if given the opportunity, I'd whip out this cinematic speech worthy of an Oscar, tell him off, and go running out the door with strength and power trailing behind me. But nothing. Just nothing. Not even a word. No, actually, I'm sorry, I did say a word. I thanked him for his time. I just put my head down and walked out the door. Because when we're growing up, we're told, trust the adults. The adults are right, trust the adults know more, trust the adults. And because I was a good kid who did what she was told, I trusted the adults. And the adults said I was stupid, therefore, I was stupid, and that was a definitive statement. And I continued to struggle in that class, but instead of bucking up, dusting myself off, and muscling through, I gave up. I did my work, but half-heartedly, and I failed tests so often the letter F was just numb to me. And worst of all, out of all of it, I didn't care at all. My teacher could have failed me 1,000 times over, and I wouldn't have even batted an eyelash. It just didn't matter to me. Because I was dumb, I was stupid, and there was absolutely no changing that. And suddenly, all at once, it clicked. Not the math, but something else. It came crashing down on me so hard in an instant, so fast, I stopped walking on my way to school. I got it. I understood it. I understood why the boys made paper frogs instead of doing their work, why every day I had begun to bring extra pencils from home because they didn't bother to bring one for themselves anymore. I understood why those boys who I knew and loved, the ones I looked forward to seeing every day, didn't care. For half of a year, I thought they were just slackers. I thought they were beneath me, below me. I thought they were just stupid. And in this horrible wave of shame, I realized how wrong I was. I was them, and they were me. Once they had been driven like me, and now I was numb like them. It's like if you give a mouse a cookie. If you tell a child they're dumb enough for long enough, they will begin to play the part. But I graduated, and I came here, and while I was blessed with new, incredible teachers, my peers were my new adversaries. 4.0s were the life mission of the majority of the kids around me, and I thought I had to do that too. But I wasn't taking AP or Chem. I'm not taking AP or Chem. And I was barely scraping by in my normal classes. I was getting C's and D's and F's on tests, applying myself and working as hard as I could for only a small payoff. But in English, I was scoring A's and B's. But if I were to take the SAT, everything that makes me intelligent would cancel out, shrouded in the shadow of my weaknesses. And I was reading and studying, using flashcards and Quizlet, doing it all, doing what everyone else was doing. But it wasn't working. I was trying so hard, putting my heart into every test and then watching myself fail. And despite hours of tutoring and night classes and tireless studying, I was failing. I actually remember clenching my teeth so hard I could hear the tension in my jaw. And that's a frustration I can barely describe. It's like your entire body wants to succeed, but your brain knows you have absolutely no hope. And I just wanted to be smart like my peers, And day after day, I had to listen to students complain about getting 85s on tests. At the time, I would have given my entire right arm, shoulder to fingertip, for an 85, a 75 even, and that made me feel so dumb, so stupid, so inadequate. And I felt like it was my fault, because maybe it was. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Maybe I wasn't studying enough. Maybe I'm stupid. Oh my God, I'm stupid. Now, that realization hit me like a bag of bricks followed by a bucket of ice water. I'm stupid. So I went into default mode. I lied, right through my teeth. Day after day, I lied that I had A's in history, that I had killed my bio test. I lied that everything was perfect, that I was going to be an engineer or a future coder because I'm an AP kid. I'm a prodigy. I'm the AP kid. UCLA just cannot wait to have me because I'm the AP kid. I'm the AP kid. But that's not true. I am not the AP kid. In fact, I'm about as far from it as you can possibly get. But I thought if I lied for long enough, I would somehow become the person I so desperately wanted to be. But time and time again, the universe proved to me that playing the persona of the AP kid was never going to work for me. Because I could work 4 times as hard and only get half as far as the kid next to me. Freshman year was the first time in my entire life where I genuinely believed that I was not enough, that my intelligence was not the correct kind of intelligence. And I had more than a handful of peers call me unintelligent to my face, and I let them say it. I let a lot of people tell me a lot of crap that year because I felt like I deserved it. And every time it hurt, like really, really, really bad. It had never hurt like that before. Let me put it this way. If someone called you a horse and commented on your hooves, you would likely say, I am not a horse. But if you believe you are a horse, you would likely go clopping off and neigh in defeat, accepting that you are, in fact, a horse. I was a horse. And I realized the insults and comments only hurt me because I was genuinely believing them. I just wanted the A. But because of something beyond my control, I was prevented from being a prodigy. But that's my biology. It's my brain. It's not a choice or a decision, but a series of chemical reactions that prevent me from remembering what ribosomes are. And I was bitter because I had built this palace in my head of how I was supposed to look and what I was supposed to do. But because of something I couldn't control, I wasn't able to do that. Because of VPD, because of stupid VPD, I could not be her. The golden, shining, bright Emmy who had her crap together. And unfortunately, playing the part was not working, and I wasn't doing any better in school. The C's and D's and F's came rolling in, and my multi-story facade just came crumbling down around me. I was trying to force my brain into this cookie-cutter mold the world was telling me to slip into, but wishing and hoping, crossing my fingers and praying that magically my brain would rewire itself was a fruitless effort. So I took a step back, and I gathered my cold, hard facts, and they weren't great. Okay, so I'm not the AP kid. I don't have a 4.0. I don't have A's. I'm not a cookie-cutter kid. In fact, I am a cookie that's been crushed out of shape and squashed by a 5-year-old. I'm mushed together with the improper chocolate chip to cookie ratio, and I'm not cooked all the way through. I'm gooey and sticky and messy. I get confused in my classes, and I don't think I'm smart. But if I took it all away, all the power and value I had placed into this idea of the AP kid, the idea of traditional intelligence, I could look at myself through a different lens. Maybe they were wrong about me. wrong about my intelligence. Maybe they were wrong about intelligence as a whole. What even is intelligence? I thought about this a lot, and while science may not be my best subject, bear with me. In science, you want a full, comprehensive set of data to make a determination, not a fraction of numbers that are only one part of one experiment. That's just inaccurate. You simply cannot make accurate conclusions based on a fraction of data. But that's your GPA. That's the 4.0. And we can't trust inaccurate data because it's just one piece, one sliver of who we are. It doesn't take into account the important things. It doesn't see the way that you think. And maybe you don't think the way your textbook wants you to. Maybe you think a different way. Maybe watching half and half curl in your coffee interests you more than AP Euro. Maybe when you were 6 years old and wondered how the holiday lights lit up was what made you interested in the concept of light and how it not only lights up the room, but also the people inside of it. Maybe that's how you think. But your GPA doesn't care about how you think. It only allows for a very specific type of mind and intelligence to shine. And the prompt here for this speech was to speak up. And as you could see, I've put my head down and been quiet for a very long time. So here it is. My GPA is not my intelligence. My GPA is not me. And as a whole, I don't think it's fair to use GPA to determine worth or intelligence. Because genius cannot and will not be quantified. Intelligence cannot and will not ever be understood. It's a construct to help us determine someone's worth, how smart they are. But how dare we take such a small portion of a human being and act like it's everything? We pride ourselves as human beings in being able to understand the complex. But for a bunch of people who bank themselves on their intelligence, we're pretty dumb to think that everyone is the same simple entity that can be understood by the same equation or number. Humankind is a beautiful, colorful data set full of outliers and variation. And to my 8th grade math teacher, you're right. I do not get A's, and I was in your class for a reason. But that day you taught me a very valuable lesson. Sometimes people don't know jack diddly squat, and you definitely didn't. And if there's anything I've learned from adults, is that you guys don't actually know everything. You've just gotten really good at pretending that you do. And the way I solved, or rather didn't solve math problems, was not enough for you, my math teacher, to know who I am. I am smart. I am intelligent. You chose to define me by the numbers on my tests and the acronym VPD, but that was a grave, grave mistake. The kids in your class that you marked off as stupid were 6 of the most incredible people that have ever graced the grounds of that one and this one. And by dismissing us, you dismissed the genius that we hadn't found yet a way to understand. And we built our genius in attempting to discover it. That was your loss, not ours. And finally, to the kids who feel dumb, to the ones who feel like they're inferior, to the ones who feel like they aren't enough, the mushy, underbaked cookies of the world, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that someone at some point brainwashed you into making yourself small. But you can go to bed each night knowing that the dumb kids who came before you, the T-wing kids that came before you, are fighting day in and day out, teeth bared, claws out, to prove everyone wrong. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be flawed. It's okay to get a 3.7 or a 2.0, and it's okay if you're totally and completely underbaked. Because in the words of John Steinbeck, once you don't have to be perfect, you can just be good. Long live the T-wing. Thank you.